you know, feel free as always to chip in with thoughts, comments, questions. If you can't stay for the whole thing, don't worry about it. Catch it on the catch up. You know, it's on my story for 24 hours, and then it's going to be on YouTube, and all the other ones are on YouTube. They're just sitting there. So if you want to catch up with other topics, and we talked about the hustle, inspiration, motivation, rejection. We should talk about success. We should talk about success. That is what we are going to talk about next week. Hey Maria, welcome. Literally just getting started. So one of the first thoughts, I'm going to start because Instagram gives you like this countdown, a 2-minute countdown when it gets to an hour. So I just don't want to, I want to have finished before we get there. So here we go. So the first place I started thinking about this whole topic was why are we here? No big deal. Why are we here? And I wondered if you guys had any thoughts on why we're here. I don't know. It's not that I have none, but I don't know. But one of the things I think in terms of from a creative perspective, in fact from any perspective, any walk of life, is to find what your calling is. Or not to find it, not like you have to go on some trek, some adventure, some quest or whatever, but to unearth it. Like it's already there, or it's already there, but you just have to unearth what it is. So it's almost like you have to go on this process of self-discovery, of finding out who you are, to find out what it is you're called to do. And the interesting thing about a calling, I think, as well, is that sometimes you may not find yourself in an industry that feels like it completely matches the thing that you think you're called for, but actually the calling is not necessarily a job function. So for example, Steve says cosmic or Instagram. I'm not sure what that means, but Flaps Johnson has joined us, so welcome. So for example, I know this doctor, and he's discovered that his calling is to sort of, okay, this is gonna sound like fancy words or whatever, but his calling is to bring light into where there is darkness. Now he could have ended up in something a bit more spiritual. He could have become a minister, maybe. That if he told somebody that was his calling, to bring light where there is darkness, he could have ended up in doing lots of really spiritual things. But actually, the medical profession needs as much light where there is darkness as any other. So the calling isn't necessarily a job role or a job title or a career path. It's what you were put here to bring forth into the world, if that makes sense. And it's more of I think an interesting place to look at what it is we do for a living. Like even if you work in the entertainment industry, or if you're a performer, if you're an artist, it may not be that the art that you're producing is your calling. It may be that you're using the art that you're producing to realize your calling, if that makes sense. So say for example, I don't know, your calling was to bring healing. If you told somebody that, they go, all right, well obviously you should be a doctor. Well actually, you could end up being a painter, and you paint such beautiful work that person, that the people that behold it just suddenly feel lifted and enlightened and whatever by the work that you're doing. So G Unique has made a joke. He says he could end up an electrician and literally bringing light. Sam Payne 36 has just joined. So that was just the thread that I pulled as to this talk about spirituality, and the first question was why are we here, and something about unearthing our calling. I was also at previous times I've also said, and this is gonna sound pretty highfalutin stuff, but being a creative is quite a godly pursuit, and I don't mean that in the sense of like religious or something like that. I've just seen a big comment. Oh, that's Steve. Steve's put a comment going up. Rio Spurs has joined. Hello, welcome. This is a chat about being a creative. So stick around if you fancy, but don't worry about it if it's not your thing. I'll finish my thread and then come back to comments as I always do. So don't worry, sit tight. I will come back to you. But yeah, I don't mean it in a religious sense of being creative, being godly, but in the sense of like, it isn't a run of the mill job. It isn't. It asks of you something bigger than just doingness. There's a sort of a beingness about it, whereas with some other jobs, and I don't want to pick specific ones because there might be somebody on here who does that job and they're like, hang on a minute, that job is, there is sort of importance of being and stuff like that in my job. But what I'm saying is really is that, you know, when you're a creative, you're accessing something quite unique that isn't necessarily called for in other jobs. And so that's what I mean by it's quite a godly thing. And also the fact that you know, creative people are creating worlds. And in the Bible, you know, it says that God created the universe and all the rest of it. So we are, in our own right, in our own way, we're also creating universes. And I think in a previous talk, I think the one about magic, I talked about how literally J.R.R. Martin, is that his name? The guy who wrote, no, that's not right, George R.R. Martin, is that right? The guy who wrote Game of Thrones, that he had like little figures to represent all the characters in each sort of area, King's Landing and Winterfell and all the rest of it, and he would move them around and figure out who hates who and who's got relationships with who and who what, you know. He literally created a world. And that's what we're doing. Even in a still image, beyond it is suggested an entire world. So that's what we're doing. I know I've said this before. So Steve says that's a really troublesome question to ask because too many people are mentally stuck due to worrying whether something they are doing is related to their purpose. Yeah, I mean, I'll come to how they can free themselves of that. But basically, it is because we are conditioned to think in a goal-orientated way that we should know what our purpose is. But we misuse, I think, sometimes the notion of a purpose or a goal or a calling or something, as in you should know what your career is, because they get kids at what age are we, like 15 or 16, and they sit us down, they even give a job title careers officer to somebody to come and talk to, you know, kids who are supposed to make a decision about what they want for the rest of their life. And some don't and some do, but yeah, we're sort of conditioned to think that we should always know what it is we want in terms of our career. But a career and a calling is not the same thing. And a calling is something, it's a gift, it's something that's already there, and it's just a matter of unearthing it. And it could be a lifelong pursuit to find out what that calling is, or you may be born into it and know it immediately. But the thinking that thinks that you should have it is not the thinking that will help you find it. Steve says, focus on what you want to do next rather than ultimate purpose. Should I do this? Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that the thinking that tells you that you should have a purpose is not the thinking that will help you find it anyways. So it's kind of like a rat in a trap, or the monkey trap, or whatever it is. You know, the thing where they put a piece of fruit in a hole, and then there's a side hole where the monkey can get the fruit, but the hole's too small to pull the fruit through. So either the monkey has to let go of the fruit and be able to remove his hand, or they will just be stuck there forever. That's basically what that kind of thinking is. G-Unique says, some people can be afraid to follow that calling because it's outside of the norm. Yes, G-Unique, you're absolutely right. And I think this is one of the challenges of being a creative, is that you don't have to do anything. But one of the ways that we can really fly as creatives is to let go of the idea that we have to be inside of the norm, or that there is a norm, because there isn't really a norm. There's just this kind of agreement, this nebulous agreement between everybody that there's some way that you should be behaving, and you don't really know exactly what the rules are, but you do know that if you're outside of it, someone will let you know. And so it's not really fair. No one really explains the rules of the game, because you could say, look, here's an example. It's not normal to walk down the street dancing with paint on your face, banging a drum or whatever. Well, yes, you're right. That isn't normal down Chingford High Street. But if you were in the middle of Pride or Mardi Gras or something else, or Carnival, then that would absolutely be right. And it would be weird if you were walking down the middle of Carnival with your Sainsbury's shopping bags and your headphones in. So who's to say what the norm is? So as artists, we have to sort of disavow ourselves of this idea of what normal is, if it's going to get in the way of us realizing our goal, unless you don't want to access the calling or the goal or the dream or whatever. And there's no right or wrong. It's just that as artists, if that's where you want to get to, you have to let go of this idea that somehow there's this norm that you're supposed to stay inside of. Otherwise, you just can't win. It's an unwinnable game. Carly, hello, welcome. Amber says, George, yes. I don't know what that is about, but yes. G-Unique gives a thumbs up, and Katie Hughes 79 has joined. Welcome. Steve says, I'm a 50-year-old and only just now finding an inkling of what I want to do, your purpose. And that's what I've just said as well, is it can take a minute to find what that is. You may not find it. You may be looking in the wrong place. You may already have known it but not realised that it's not like you lose at life if you don't find it, but it's an opportunity. I think that's maybe a better way of holding it, is it's an opportunity rather than, Rebecca failed at life because she didn't find her calling. Pull the trapdoor and she goes to hell. You know, it's not that. It's an opportunity here on earth. Same as going to France or going to Thailand or whatever. It's an opportunity. It's not like you failed as a human being if you don't go to every continent. We really have to let go of this idea that goals are musts and necessities. They're opportunities. Mike says, I'm 52, just figured out what I want. I've been volunteering with butterfly conservation, wonderful, and others, so want to do environmental work. It makes me so happy. And it may even be that there's some other calling through which you're expressing in the realm of butterfly conservation and environmental work. What? Amber says, I've always thought the word normal would poison you as an artist. Yes, quite possibly. Was poison to an artist. Gotcha. Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, it's not that we need to make normal wrong. It's just that normal is like I say, a nebulous agreement that none of us really know what it is. Even people who claim to be normal, they're doing, in their life, they will be doing something that people regard as abnormal. So there's no normal, there's just tendencies, and tendencies change. You know, it was normal at one point to wear a bowler hat to work if you worked in the city. When was the last time you saw a bowler hat apart from a carnival or a circus or something? Do you know what I mean? So normal changes. More 4690 has joined, so has Mark 7 Boy, welcome. Amber says it feels like a box. Yeah, it can do, but I think that it might not empower you to think of it as a box even that you have to get out of. Just disappear it. There is no normal. Same as there is no industry over there that you need to break into. You are the industry. If you're doing your thing, you are in the industry. Because you know, if we create something like that, then now we've got something to battle against. And really, normal is so nebulous and ephemeral that it may not even exist. It only really exists as an idea. So it's not. It may feel like a box, but that's just a feeling. It's not necessarily really real. Elsa Arnold, welcome. So, like there is no spoon. Absolutely, there is no spoon. And so, okay, I've got notes today, so I'm looking at notes, blimey. So one of the things about this notion of creativity being this sort of godly pursuit, and that we have to sort of, or we can elevate our thinking to be able to access some different sort of tier of thinking or something, or of awareness, is to, I think, I would propose, like, what's the word? Recalibrating our experience of being a creative, because a lot of the time we think, and I've certainly done this, is think of creativity and my work in terms of what am I going to get for it, what's in it for me, where am I going to, and it's not in a sort of Scroogey kind of way, but that's just our conditioning, is to think of everything we do really in a way of like, in terms of like, what is this going to do for me? And I think if there's a way of recalibrating your calling into something that's more about being of service, that it can help to create a more spiritual relationship with the work that you're creating. So that isn't all about servicing the ego aspect of you, but it's about something bigger, that it's about something beyond who you are. And and I have to draw a distinction between being of service and being a martyr. I'm not talking about that you are not satisfied in the process of creating this art. That it's not about that. It's just about saying, how can this serve? How can this be of service to other people? Even if it's I just want to make people laugh and forget their problems, right? That could be a way of being of service that a comedian could change how they experience their own work. So rather than, I just want to lavish myself in laughter, because it is a good feeling, there's no doubt about it. Like being on stage in front of people, making them laugh is a great feeling. But if you turn that into it being something of service, then it's like even more fulfilling and more rewarding, because you're thinking, I am helping people forget about the things that might feel heavy and weighty in their lives, and you sort of disappear yourself in the process and just are there being of service. Another way of putting it is making a difference. How is what you're doing making a difference? And again, it doesn't have to be some high worthy idea. It doesn't have to be I'm saving children's lives or something like that. It can just be, I made a difference because I made somebody smile, or I introduced somebody to a new idea, or what other way could I allowed someone to let go of some sort of hard political idea they had or something. You know what I mean? It could be anything. I'm just like spitballing how that could show up in specific ways, but really I'm just talking in general terms that, you know, being of service, making a difference, thinking in terms of what your contribution is might be a more empowering way of thinking of the work that you're producing, and then it takes the me-ness out of the work and turns it more into an outward attention off yourself. Remember, like a couple of weeks ago I was going on and on and on about this thing about getting your attention off yourself. Well, it really does, and then it makes you available as a creative to to make a difference into the world, and it be affecting and making a difference for people out there. So Jamie's just joined, welcome. And oh wait, G-Unique says, at various times in my life I've been told by mediums I have a gift. Now I'm in a group discussion about spirituality. Maybe it's time to stop resisting. I mean, who knows, G-Unique? Who knows? It's, you know, because the thing is, it's not finite. It's not like you're gonna, you know, necessarily get a clear indication, follow it, and oh yes, it worked out, that was my calling. It is trial and error, really feeling your way into what a calling could possibly even be is trial and error. And you might go down that road, and actually it might be that you had needed to go down that road to lead you to somewhere else. Because that's how I feel sometimes about some of the things that I've done. Because I get to a place where I'm, say, for example, I'm writing or I'm acting or I'm doing comedy or directing, and I'm thinking, oh, I get to acting, I think, oh, this is my calling. And then I start writing, go, oh, maybe I was doing the acting to give me access to the writing. And then I start doing stand-up, and I'm like, oh, wait, maybe you go through several different job functions, as it were, in not pursuit, because we're not chasing it, but in the process of unearthing this thing, you just end up in lots of different spaces, and it's the journey. I know it sounds trite because everyone goes, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, and that becomes this kind of trite you know, saying or whatever that gets bandied about, like in spiritual terms and stuff like that. But really it is, because like, if you go through all these different spaces, you will acquire skills and knowledge and meet interesting people and just experience different spaces just on the path towards something. Who knows what the thing is, but the journey is as important as the destination. Maybe that's more what the saying is, as important rather than not important. But anyway, who knows. G-Nick says, I'm a firm believer that nothing happens by accident. No, for true, I believe that too. But sometimes we're not in a space to be able to know what that not by accident thing is. Like, what is the universe getting at by letting us experience this thing? Sometimes we have to circle back round on an experience and then be able to understand why it was put in our path. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm forever going back, you know, just a thought will come into my head of like, a memory that I haven't been able to let go of, and then suddenly, like, you know, 10, 15 years, 20 years after the fact, you're like, oh, that's what that was about, because at the time your consciousness wasn't ready to be able to get whatever message or information was in it, but now you are. And then maybe in another 10 years time you'll circle back on the same experience and then get even a deeper meaning from it. Martha's joined. Hello. Mark says, if you improve someone's well-being, they almost always pay it forward. You enrich many that way. Absolutely. It's so true. Will Skates Backwards says, hey. And Steve says, trouble is we live in a society. Whoa. Oh gosh. Every time a new comment comes up, all the others like shoot up. Anyways, trouble is we live in a society where calling is determined by economic production. Are you making money on that? Yeah, Steve, we do. But that's not what we're doing here. Is we're talking about defining it in our own way. Look, the thing is, if you want to, you can be subject to the very powerful kind of momentum and forces that are at play in society in terms of agreements and beliefs, or you can define yourself, and you have to have a lot of power to be able to do that. But you can't, if you want to sort of victimize yourself, as it were, and say, yeah, oh well, society says that, then that's if you feel that that's if you feel that's true, then that's where you are. But you also have the choice to say, even though society says XYZ, I stand in this truth. Mark Sevenboy says, my old teacher, true. We need to move further away from that if we can. I think Mark here is addressing Steve's comment just about moving away from these predefined societal sort of definitions of what calling could be. And ultimately, I think even people who on the surface of it subscribe to these notions of like calling being about your money, the size of your house, your net worth, blah blah blah, I think deep down, if you really questioned them, I think it would come down for most people to something a lot more fulfilling and less material, and more about connectedness with those around them, feeling like they're making a contribution, but there's not a lot of consciousness around this, and so for the most part people are not speaking with a conscious awakeness about it, and so they default to, oh well, I want to make $1 million, or I want a nice house, or I want blah, blah, blah. I want the same things myself, but I don't want that to be the defining factor of like how I contribute, how I create what I create. Do you know what I mean? I don't want it to be, will this get me $1 million house? Because that ultimately will not be rewarding when I'm sat on my own in $1 million house. If I even were to be able to realize that. Mike says, yes, used to do things to try to make me feel better, but now I do things that benefit others, which makes me feel great. It's a win-win. Exactly. I mean, it can't be overestimated. Underestimated? I always get confused. Anyways, but you can't. How important it is to contribute. Remember how great we feel when we offer to do something and it lights somebody up because they appreciated it. And it wasn't about getting something back in return. It was just that you did that thing for somebody and it lit them up. I'm going to read these next few comments, and then, whoa, there's quite a few actually. I'll read these and then I'll just tell you a little story of something that happened to me, which I have actually said before, but I'll just repeat it anyhow. Martha says, hello. Carly says, it's for me about why you are here, which can be expressed in so many different ways. I'm here to express the deeply felt but unnameable experience of being alive. Right, exactly. And so what Carly's expressing there is her calling has nothing to do with what she does, which is to paint, but through her painting she can express this calling. G Unique says, my old RA teacher, she said, okay, Steve, exactly. Modern society often keeps us so busy as not to realize what our calling is. Keeping the wolf from the door can be all consuming. So listen, can I re-language that for you, G Unique, a little bit? Rather than modern society often keeps us busy, how about this? We allow modern society to distract us from realizing our calling. So that gives you a little bit of power, a little bit of say in the matter, because otherwise, I'm a stand for you guys not being victims of this, but rather just seeing it and realizing that you have some say. So I'm gonna probably pull you up a little bit if you guys, if you start to talk about, oh, this thing is happening to me. It's not. You're choosing. We're all making choices. I'm not specifying you, Unique, as well. I'm not like, this is not just you, but this is just a reminder of the say that you have in the direction of your own life. Carly says, I express through art, working in TV, therapy, training, and transformational work. All these access my true expression. There you go. Don't need to add anything to that. And Amber says, lately, I found peace in helping others. The idea of getting back to caring more about people than things. 100%. Yeah. I mean, look, let's not make things the demon or anything like that, but it is very rewarding to be there for people, basically. I've got no other fancy way of saying it. Being there for people. After I did this landmark thing recently, and this whole notion of get your attention off yourself, and the whole thrust of the program was about, what are you how can you be of service to other people. In one of the breaks, she even said, the facilitator said, listen, I am very concerned for you people, because I'm having a lot of people coming up to me asking about themselves, and then they should be asking me, how can my brother's not well, how can I get him the help that he needs, or I want to do this project for my community, how do I get the money to do that? And you could see how strongly the pull is in human being to just be so inward, turning their attention on themselves so much and not looking outwards, see where the contribution could be. So very briefly, the story I was going to tell you, I'll just make it super concise because there's so many details of it that are interesting, but otherwise it will be a super long story. But basically, I wrote a script, and then I was in LA, and I realized that, I was trying to sort of arrange meetings and I wasn't really getting any luck. And then I remembered I'd written the script, it had been bought by this exec. I thought, let me hit this guy up. So I went in to see him, and we were talking, and he said, what do you want while you're here? And I hadn't given it any thought other than, everyone was talking about the same thing. The goal is series regular. The goal is, getting on TV, whatever. So I just regurgitated those ideas that I'd been fed. And he's like, that's not interesting to me. You're a comedian, you write, you direct or whatever. You should be, and he had a poster, a massive A1 poster of Mindy Kaling on propped up on his floor. He produced the Mindy Project, or was one of the execs on it. And he said, this is the sort of thing you should be aiming at. You should be looking at writing, producing, directing, starring in your own stuff. And my mind was blown. And then he goes, what is your contribution? You have to think in terms of what your contribution is. What do you want your contribution to be? And my mind was like that, because I thought, I've never thought of what I'm doing in terms of how am I giving back with what I'm doing, even if it's in the process of entertaining, taking a load off people, making them think about things other than their problems. It just never occurred to me. And I'm still in the question of it, and I don't mind being in the question of it, because what happens is, by even just being in the question of it, I every day anew refresh this desire to understand what it is or how I could contribute, if that makes sense. So I don't have to think about all the time turning it in on myself. How is this gonna affect me? How am I gonna get mine? I can turn it outwards and just go, what's my contribution? And it doesn't take a lot of weight off of you, actually. As an artist, when you're struggling and you're trying to create and you're thinking, how is this gonna work out for me? If you suddenly, even though your problems or challenges are still the same, if you turn your attention outwards, it just makes a massive difference to the weight that you feel, because suddenly it's not about you. It's about what can be given, and then suddenly the stand that you're making for the work that you're creating completely changes. So that's that. The next thought I thought of, hang on. Amber says, I think about that constantly. Remind me what, because I've just said so many things just then that I'm not sure what you might be referring to, but it sounds interesting. So tell me more, basically. And whoever's doing all those hearts and stuff, thank you so much. So another, you like that story. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. That story had that situation had a huge impact on me, because I think because the guy was so high up, and I was just so excited to get the meeting, and I got so much more than I bargained for. About your contribution, fantastic. Okay, I just got so much more than I bargained for in that conversation that it literally reorientated me. And I don't say that lightly. It changed the direction that I was heading in. And so I just really appreciated him making that contribution. As I've said to you before, the life I grew up into meant that I had a lot of my attention on me, and sometimes I still have a pull sometimes, and I think we all do, of just turning the spotlight back on myself, especially after I've given. I feel like, oh no, but what about me? And I have to, I need rest days now, and I just gave to somebody yesterday, and I spent a lot of time with so-and-so, so I need to now, it's all about me. So it's going to take a minute to unravel that way of thinking thinking, but it is only just a way of thinking. It's not real. And I think one of one of the other thoughts that came up this week that sort of ties to it, and let me see if I can thread the thought together, was just this idea that the me that we think is over here is not necessarily what we think it is anyways. So there's a whole idea of creating this work so that I get recognition, there's more for me, there's something for me, or whatever. It's kind of nutty, because actually, and I hope this isn't going to be too esoteric or woo-woo, but we have to question what me really means. Because I think we think of me, hang on, let me just say a couple of hellos here. Oh, so Ryan has just joined. Hello, Ryan. And Steve says, use your comment, get your attention off. Yes. I think it's a very useful, off yourself with my kids this week. I think it's a very useful comment. I don't know if kids have the consciousness to understand what that really means, but certainly it's an idea to sort of really feel your way into. But yeah, so what I was saying was that, like, the idea of a me over here, it might not be quite as solid an idea as we first thought. Yes, physically there is a me over here. Hey Earl, hello. There is physically a body over here, but I think I'll tell you what brought this thought up, right? Is I was thinking, I'm often thinking what a contradiction I can be. Like, in terms of, I'll say something about myself and then I'll start to think, actually, a couple of weeks ago I said the opposite of that. Or I'll express an opinion and then I'll think, actually, just yesterday I was saying not that. I was saying the absolute opposite of that thing. And actually, I'm beginning to realize that we are not constants. I'm not beginning to realize, I think I knew that anyways, but I'm beginning to experience how not a constant I am, or me is. I am not always thinking the same thing about everything. I'm not always feeling the same thing. I don't always make the same choices. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things within us that are not constant, that it's making me really question, in a very real way, what does it mean? What does me mean? Because I don't think the me that we think we are is as real as we think it is. I think that we're just a bunch of ideas. I think that me, Andi, is an idea. And it's an idea that I keep going by playing the same role every day, kind of thing. Because we change over time. Who I was like 10 years ago, I know is not the same as who I am now. And so I think it's just really interesting. Then what is me? And I think, or what is me, sort of thing. It's like, all you can really be, I think, is tendencies. Same as when we were talking about norm. The norm is you can just be tendencies. And so just be about, so then I was thinking maybe all we are is really just about the choices that we make and the thoughts that we express, the words that we say, and then what we stand for. You know, that's the only really significant thing that we can constantly say is of importance about the me, because all the other stuff, it's so transient. Like, I felt a bit tired earlier, but I don't feel tired now. So was that me, or is this me? Do you know what I mean? But the one thing I will say constantly is I'm a stand for. Say, for example, I'm a stand for these conversations. I think what I'm getting at is that I mean, this was an idea that was shared with me in the landmark thing, is that really all we are is our word. So the most important thing about the me the us that we are, the I that I am, is what I make a stand for, and what I say I will do, and the things that I do off the back of those things. And nothing else really matters, because it's also changeable. It's also unfixed. But we feel like we want to fix things because then we'll know. Because we like knowing. Human beings on one level of our attention, and I want to quickly speak about that as well. One level of our attention, we really need to know. I need to know where you stand. I need to know what your politics is. I need to know who you want to vote for. I need to know what your name is. I need to know. But actually, sometimes knowing is like not necessarily the best prize. And in terms of keeping things fixed, sometimes things just are nebulous and changeable. So the only thing you can do is reinventing every day, is just like stating your word, stating this is what I stand for. I continue to stand for this thing. Because the people that we respect the most are the people that are true to their word. And what we call people who are not true to their word, we call them flaky. And flaky is not a nice term to use for somebody. It's not a positive thing to say about somebody. But if somebody has integrity and keeps their word and makes a stand for something, look at, say, you know, the people we most respect, people like Martin Luther King or Gandhi or Nelson Mandela or whatever. We respect them because they are their word, and their words perpetuate way beyond their life. How many times do you hear Martin Luther King and Gandhi and all these incredible people quoted because their word is so powerful and they stood by it so strongly. So maybe that's the thing for human beings, is to be in their word, because we don't do that very often. We don't hold people to account, certainly, and people don't hold themselves to account, and they use words to slither out of things as well. Like, I'll try and be there. I do that. If I don't want to go to something, I'll go, oh yeah, I'll try and be there. It means I ain't going, and you know it and I know it. Anyways, right, let me just go back on comments. Oh, did I say hello? Hello, Earl. Hey, Paul, welcome. You're not late. So Steve says, who is the me? Welcome to Buddhism and postmodernism. Okay, I don't even know what any of that stuff means, because I'm not studying any of this stuff. All I'm doing is literally just sitting around thinking and feeling my way into what makes sense. So it's nice that they're proper things that are being studied, but I have just literally no idea. Junique says, sometimes when I say me, I actually mean my environment, family, friends, community. I mean, interesting you should say that, Junique, because a thought I had earlier was that all that we are is housed in this body, but all that we are is not confined to this body. And so, you know, you exist in me, in the sense that I know you. Through this medium, we know each other, and therefore a little bit of you exists in me, in my mind, because I have an image of you in my mind, and you of me. Rasmus says, maybe the you is a being apart from your body. Maybe I mean we're all just spitballing here, none of us can really know, but yeah, maybe there is an us a me that exists, and within that me is this physical being. That's a bonkers way of looking at it. Almost like me is this, like, you know, energetic web, and inside of that web is this body, this physical body. I don't know what the implications are of that, but that's pretty profound to think that that might be who we are or how we are. Martha says, my goodness, I agree. I am also finding how not constant I am helps me with attempting to be not as judgmental. The realization that I could be that person eventually, or was that person. Martha, I'm going to come back to that because that's a really good point. Rasmus says there's a metaphysical aspect as well. Absolutely. Junix says our actions define us. 100%. Mark gives a thumbs up. Mark also says, I'll try and get there. Saying no when you mean no really frees you. Yeah, it does. I wish I had the balls to do it. Amelia says, like our consciousness. And please say a little more about what you meant by that, while I go back to Martha's comment about realizing how unconstant she is and helping with attempting to be so non-judgmental. I'm going to quickly shoot through to the later notes that I made, because I want to speak to that point. I was wanting to talk about different tiers of consciousness very quickly, because there's an idea that I really like, and I think is true actually, is that human beings, we can function at lots of different tiers of consciousness, and in different tiers of consciousness, different things mean something, and certain things don't mean anything. They're not really relevant, significant. And Steve, you mentioned, we were messaging, and you mentioned something about social political issues related to being a creative. And I think the reason that that didn't really chime with me is I do believe that sort of stuff exists in a tier below, not less important, but below the tier that we're speaking at. This tier of consciousness that we're speaking of is more in the spiritual realm, and I don't think social political things exist or are relevant in the spiritual realm, because in the spiritual realm one doesn't think in terms of politics. One thinks in terms of, you are a mirror of me, I am reflected in your eyes, I am you, kind of thing. And that doesn't really chime with the social political realm or other things of that ilk. Even religion, I would actually go as far as to say, like organized religion. Now, it's not to say that each tier one is more important than the other, because the upper tiers couldn't exist without the lower tiers. So what we have to do is we're integrating as we go along. If you think about like how a child is that children literally don't understand certain things because they have not developed that level of consciousness. And to think that we as adults have gotten to the highest level of consciousness is a mistake. I think there are, beyond that, different tiers that we can access depending on, you know, what mood, what state we're in, I don't even know how we do it, but you must have felt sometimes where you get a sense of timelessness when you're doing something, maybe your own creative endeavor. Like you have this sense of timelessness whereby you really get a sense, or maybe you're having a great holiday and you've gone somewhere peaceful and really sort of restorative. And you get this sense of timelessness and peacefulness and oneness with everything. And then there's other times when you go into judgment and hating and, you know, just, you know, it's all you, but it's you at different tiers in your consciousness. If you got even higher, you probably just turn into light and just disappear. But we haven't quite mastered that yet. But do you know what I mean? So we can access at different levels. And so where Martha said this thing, let me just find your comment. Finding how inconstant she is helps her to be less judgmental. That is higher tier thinking to my mind, because what she's basically seeing is that she's functioning in that higher tier. She's basically seeing the oneness of it all. And by seeing and if you are accessing the oneness of you all, then you can't be in a space of judgment of another person, because you get that they're you reflected back to you. So that's what I wanted to say about tiers of consciousness. So Amelia says that was linked to your last point. Aha, okay. And Mike says we all know, I think you meant know right and wrong. Do right, we feel good. Do wrong, we feel bad. The current me is trying to do good. Yes. Now, Mike, I'm going to suggest, controversial, but that right and wrong is not it doesn't exist in the tier that I'm talking about. That tier, right and wrong, because that's a moral call, that exists in that tier where like social political stuff is, religious stuff is, you know, morality, all those sorts of things. In the tier above that, right and wrong isn't relevant, because if you're seeing somebody else reflected, if you're seeing you reflected in somebody else, you immediately will not do wrong, because you know that if you harm that person, you will be harming yourself, and therefore it'd be stupid. Amelia says that we are separate from our body and physical being. We're not. I don't think we're separate from it. That we are separate from our body and physical being. We're not separate from it. I think we're integrated in some way, but probably. Here we go. We are not confined to the physical body necessarily in the way that we think we might be. That Andi is happening over here, and G Unique is happening over there, and Amelia is happening over there. We might not be as separated like that. You know about string theory, about atoms that, as you know, separated by millions of light years or whatever, can affect each other. And so maybe, you know, if that's happening in space, why isn't it happening in us? We're atoms and molecules as well. So maybe even just on a scientific level, we're entanglement. We're entangled, sort of on a quantum level. You know, and therefore, if we're entangled on a quantum level, maybe we can affect each other and are part of each other more than we ever thought that we were. Maria, sorry, little fingers interrupting. No worries. Carly, this is fabulous. Thank you. Wonderful. And Steve says, yes to oneness and tiers of consciousness. Awesome. And I think that one of the skills of being a human being, one of the dances that we can do, because we seduce ourselves into thinking that the place that we're supposed to be is enlightened, you know, this almost turning into lightness business. And actually, it might not be that. It might be that we dance between the levels. And so when you talk to a child, then you go to magical thinking, and Santa Claus exists, and play and wonder and all that sort of stuff. Or when you create, even, that there's a sense of play and wonder. That's what I think is when I do plays, the thing I love best about them is the rehearsal, because you're just in this wonderland of make-believe. But then you can dance with that. You can't do that on the tube on the way there. You can't have that same thinking. You've got to be in a different tier of thinking that's a bit more logical and defensive, maybe even. But then you have a conversation like this, and you can access something else. But you need all those previous layers to be able to access the higher one. So we can't have this. If you start to get this kind of qualitative judgment about, the higher ones are obviously the ones we want to get to, then you're not in the higher one anyways, and you couldn't access it with that type of thinking. And the dance is to move between them effortlessly, so that when you're talking to somebody and you perceive that they're on a particular level, you can just dip down into that level consciously, converse with them in a way that they'll get, and dance back up to your level. And when you want to get back up to that level, you've got to recreate it anew every day, because there is a tendency, I think, in the spiritual types, or people who work in that domain, to manufacture a look, and everyone thinks it's, spirituality should be serene and nam myoho renge kyo, I don't know, whatever. But actually, spirituality is just whatever shows up, and if someone expresses it in a different way that isn't all white robes and a bindi on their head and stuff like that, then so be it. That's human being. That's how different we all are, is that it can show up. Everybody wears it differently, and that's the brilliance and the wonder of it. Let me go back to your comments. Martha says, I really hope we are not confined to the physical body. Death scares me a bit. Martha, death is scary. But here's the thing. We're both gods and worms, as Jason Silver said this week, and he, I think, was quoting somebody else. But we're gods and worms. So we are infinite, but we're also finite. We've got this finite body, being, thing, meat suit, but we're also infinite. But the thinking that is scared of death is a thinking that is finite anyways. So, it's kind of, you can think it or you can not think it. It doesn't matter. Which is, a shame. But it's not a shame, because it just is. There's a thinking that you can get into, that you can work your way into, where death doesn't matter, because you're accessing something beyond, like something in the infinite. Maybe that's another tier above spirituality, when you get so zen, so relaxed, so okay with the finiteness of the material being, that you are okay with it. You get so okay with it that you're okay with it. Because we're just passing through. Our time on this earth, it seems like a long time, 80 years or 90 years or whatever, people put in. It seems like a long time, but actually it's nothing, because the universe is infinite, and we're just a blip, a momentary, and death is scary, but it is. Steve says, I like the idea that this life is a dance. Man, you've hit your groove today. Oh, cool, thank you. I think all of it is a dance, really. But, often we think we should know steps where we don't actually need to know steps. We don't realize that we can improv, and we don't, that whole thing, it's literally like, when you step onto the dance floor and you're like, people are watching me, okay, and really then your tune comes on and you want to cut loose, but you can't, because you think people are watching you. That is life. How often do you just want to cut loose at life, and you can't, because you think, people are watching me, what if I tell people that I really love butterfly conservation and people laugh at me or whatever, when that's your jam. That is your jam, so you've got to go and do it. You've got to go and do it. Is it Marianne Williamson who talks about, we can't, I can't, but I'm paraphrasing, but hiding what you have away from the world is doing a disservice to the rest of the world. We owe it to show up. We owe the world showing up fully, completely, loving our jam, and just letting the world have it. Fully, unadulterated. This is what I am about and what I'm into. Rasmus says, we clearly do. What happens when a very handsome man walks by you on the street? Your eyes follow him. Find yourself thinking thoughts, and he did nothing but pass you by. I don't know what that's about, but yes, I like the idea of it. Gem 1071 has joined. Good evening. I'm very well, thank you, Gem. And G Unique says, we are definitely more than just our physical selves. As was said last week, we're made of the same stuff as stars. Exactly. The universe is eternal. G Unique says, to be afraid of death is to never really live. Well, I think, to be fair, fear of death and death itself is very much a part of being alive. And I think that, that dude in the black cloak watching over us is should be our ally in terms of making sure that we do dance. We do our dance. Martha says, I hope I get to that kind of thinking. You might do, but the hoping won't get you there. You just have to be in it. That's the trick. That's the dance. That's the dance. Rasmus says it was the atoms affecting each other. Ah, yes, of course. That's right. Yes, because, you know, who knows whether there's a little chemical fusion or something that happened between you and that person that you're passing in the street, or, you know, when you meet somebody and there's a weird energy between you. That isn't just, that is literally energy. That could be entanglement theory at play. It's just like, ugh, something's happening. Carly says, my mum says, when you are about to die, death comes and fights to keep you alive. If he loses, he takes you. I like that metaphor. If he loses, he takes you. Damn, girl. That's good. Okay, so a few minutes to go. So I just want to battle through these last ideas about tiers of consciousness and just what's possible when we start to increase our vibration and move up to those higher tiers. And again, remember, there's no judgment. It's not like you should be at these higher tiers. You just account for where you're at and acknowledge your thinking is based on the level of consciousness that you're currently in. But the things that are possible from these higher tiers, which I think really serve us as creators, as artists, gratitude is possible when you're in that higher tier. You're grateful for what you have. I've seen a lot of people, artists basically on Facebook complaining about their lot or what their agents are or aren't doing and stuff like that. And when I was in a particular tier of consciousness, I was like, I wanted to attack them and tell them where they should get off with their complaining. And then I realized my job isn't to correct them, like I've got the final say on what's right and wrong. My job is to take the lesson from it, and the lesson I took is, shit, I'm grateful that I'm not in that consciousness where I'm seeing problem and fault, and that I should be grateful, so grateful. And I became so grateful for what I have. There are things that I want to create for myself in my career, but I just suddenly got, wow, it's so easy to go into complaint, and I just really just let myself sit in the gratitude and think of the things that are working out, and just got super grateful. So gratitude is possible. The being of service without it being martyrdom, that is also possible. Also understanding how little we know about anything really. Not feeling like knowing is like this important thing. Like, I very much love knowing stuff, and I love surprising people with little bits of information and, oh, did you know that, blah, blah. But actually knowing is bullshit. We don't really know anything really. We just got a few ideas, but we talk as though we know everything. When you really question, when you speak, how much you really know, it's surprising how much you're like, you have to prefix it with I think, or apparently, or I heard, because I actually don't really know. We know very little, and the older you get, usually the more you realise how little you know. We talked about this earlier, but getting that we're all one, seeing yourself reflected back in another, and allowing that to stop you judging people so harshly. Again, that's something that I am guilty of. And in these people that I saw complaining on Facebook, these actors I saw complaining, I also recognise, I took a minute to take the lesson of also recognising I used to do that a lot. And just training myself out of it. God, there's so many other things that I want to mention, but I don't want to rush them. You know what I'm going to do? After party. I'm going to do an after party. It's going to be about 10-15 minutes, but I think I got to do that because I'm about to get the countdown, and I want to go back to your comments. I don't want to ignore the comments. So let me do that, and then there'll be a little after party. It's going to be very brief. But Rasmus says, have to go. Pleasure again. Lovely following you. Oh, Rasmus has got to go. Okay. Dude, I'll see you. Pick it up on catch up if you need to. Steve says, I tried to swipe the comments and swipe myself out of the conversation. Okay. G-Unique says he did that last week. Okay. And Julian has joined. Welcome. Steve says, the older you get, the less you know and can remember. Very true. G-Unique says, the fool thinks they know all. The wise know there is much to learn. There you go. What more can I say? All right. Very, very brief after party, because I just want to share these ideas rather than have them spill over to next week. Because next week, I would really love to talk about success, because we talked about rejection as the first one that we did, and I think actually success would be a really nice topic to cover. But anyways, I'm going to end this one now and then pick it up again for anyone that just wants to hear these other points, and then yeah, that'll be us. All right, Thanks for watching, guys, everyone that's been here. And maybe I'll see you on the other side. See ya. So yeah, these other ideas that I thought were possible through accessing this higher sort of tier of consciousness or being. One is seeing life reflected back at you through the people that you're interacting. And one of the ideas that I really hate, but I think is probably true, is after party, is the fact that if you are seeing something in somebody that is annoying you, it probably is some part of you that you haven't reconciled, made sense of, accepted, etc., etc. And I really hate that, because the things that annoy me, I think, are genuinely annoying things, and these people shouldn't be doing them, and blah 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 blah. But actually, there might be some lesson or gift in these interactions that, you know, when you're able to really take an objective look at what's going on, think about who you are or who you've been, that you might just be able to see what it is in them. For example, this person that I saw complaining, I feel like sometimes they can be a little bit cocky and a little bit entitled. And then I started thinking to myself, this is a long time after I saw their post. I was like, okay, are you saying you've never done that? You've never been entitled or felt entitled? You've never been cocky about something? Yes, of course I have. And probably there is a part of myself that I haven't quite sort of reconciled or made sense of, or, you know, allowed or whatever, that they're just reflecting back at me. They are, the people around us are literally mirrors. So it helps us to raise our own vibration by starting to see the beauty in other people. Seeing the beauty in other people is a gift that we can do for ourselves, because then you're starting to express the beauty in yourself. It's a sort of a positive feedback loop, a virtuous cycle, because I think the opposite is a vicious cycle. So a virtuous cycle, virtuous cycle. That's why, one of the reasons why I try and spend as little time thinking about Trump, because I always think negative things about him. I'm just talking about him as a phenomenon, not as a not from a perspective of like politics. And I think every time I think of him, I think and see something negative. And so I'm just feeding back on myself this sort of negativity. I'm seeing something in him that's probably in me, you know, maybe to a smaller level. So let me just not put my attention on him instead. Or if I do put my attention on him, think of him in terms of the pain that he's in. That is how I can connect to his humanity. Is that somebody like him who behaves like him is more than likely there's a lot of existential pain in that person, because otherwise, you know, it's unlikely that you would behave the way that you do. So that was one thing, is just seeing the world reflected back in you. And that takes a lot of judgment out of, as I think Martha said, Helen, hey, hello, welcome. And Mark, welcome back. And Mike Burgess, hello. So seeing the pain in somebody else, or just seeing, you know, what, yeah, it is pain often that's doing these more disagreeable things. It helps you to connect with their humanity and takes a judgment out of your interaction with them. And it's hard. It's not an easy thing, but if you can access those upper tiers, then yeah, you can start to experience other people in that way. Let's just go back on them comments there. Mark says, I must be really irritating, shake my head. Oh, I don't know what that means. Gene says, I totally agree. Sometimes we need to be able to view some things differently. And Steve says, who we push away from us says more about ourselves than them. Absolutely, 100%. And Mike says, hell yes. Keep out negative thought. Look for the good. And Julie says, every time I think of Trump, I think of unfavorable body functions. I think, Mike, the thing about negative thoughts, I personally think that trying to control your thoughts in any way is a losing game. It's very difficult. I think instead, just observe yourself thinking those thoughts. So it's not about controlling. And that's another thing that sort of self-help tries to perpetuate, is this idea that somehow we can control our mind when we can't. You know, we literally cannot do that. Like, if I say don't think of pink elephants, obviously at some point pink elephants is going to come into you. You can just see their curly pink tail. Have they got pink eyes, or have they got grey eyes? I don't know. But you see pink elephants. We can't control our thinking, but what we can do is go, oh, I'm having those thoughts again that are those negative thoughts about the people around me. Oh, I'm judging that person because they do X, Y, Z. I think that's a much more accessible and easy way to come at it from. And also it means that you don't give yourself grief when you don't achieve it. Because I think that's one of the frustrations that people have with meditation, is that they feel like because they can't, I'm not controlling my thoughts, therefore I'm losing at this game called meditation. When actually all it is just creating a little bit of separation from your monkey mind chatter to be able to observe it and have that peaceful, sit in the state of peaceful observation of the mind rather than being the mind. That's all that meditation is. And you can do that anyhow. By the way, just as a side note, you can do meditation while you're gardening. You can do it while you're washing up. You can do it while you're vacuum cleaning. You can do it while you're writing. I write as a journal. That's my meditation, because I haven't been able to master the sitting still quietly thing. So instead, I just do a little writing meditation. I write my thoughts down, and that clears my brain and allows me to decompress and sleep. So no need to control the mind is basically what I'm getting at. No longer giving away our power. Oh, hang on. Let me just read the comments before I go on to the next point. Every time okay. Who is the me observing me? Okay, so Steve, very briefly, I don't think there is a me. I think there's an awareness that has no name that is observing the me. And who knows what that awareness is and where the boundaries of it are. Who knows if it's as individuated as the me that it's observing. Steve says, whoa, have I done that? Okay, I've been in a less judgmental place recently. The more compassion I show for others, the more I show for myself. Very liberating. That's amazing. I mean, and that's it, isn't it? It's that what you give to other people, when it's done from the right intention, just comes straight back at you. Mike says, oh, I have a negative thought, just like you said, trying to filter it out. Yeah, don't, let yourself off the hook for that. Let negative thoughts come and go. If you don't act on them, then they don't matter. Not nearly as much as people think they do anyways. Like, positive thinking, I saw this Facebook post saying it's probably one of the most dangerous ideas to perpetuate, and I don't necessarily know or agree about that, but what I do know is that we have too many thoughts. We have thousands of thoughts a day, literally thousands of thoughts a day. Trying to control all of that will drive you mad. G-Unique says there's a theory in science that states that mere fact of observing something has some form of effect on the subject. Yeah, that's the wave particle thing, where if you observe it, wave particle thing, where if you observe an atom, it acts like a particle, and if you don't observe it, it acts like a wave. Mark 7 says thumbs up. He's got to go. Heisenberg principle. Is that what that's called? The old wave particle thing, Steve. All right. Next point. I've got four more. Next point is at the higher tier, you no longer give away your power. So what does that mean? Because people talk about that a lot. And remember that episode of Friends where, what's her name? The blonde one. Rachel was talking about, she was reading this book, and it was about stealing your wind, and it was a sort of female empowerment book. But really, what giving your power away means is like letting things happen that are within your control, but you allow other people to have dominion over you, or don't express your choice or decision, and instead go with what somebody else has imposed on you or something like that. So, for example, this week I had an interaction with somebody, and they kind of had a bit of a go at me, and instead of telling them to get fucked, which I should have in my own polite, articulate way, I didn't. And that's an example of giving away your power. And it's not that being powerful is about telling everyone to get fucked when they say something you don't like, but like making a stand for what is important to you, and where your principles are. And it's, again, a dance. And there are times when in that same interaction, it would not have been appropriate to tell someone where to go. It would have been appropriate to go with it and just to take it up with them later or whatever. But in that instance, I felt, for me, I was pissed off with myself that I didn't just tell this person to get fucked and then go and talk to them later or whatever. So this higher tier allows you to really stand in your truth of what's like true for you, and stop other people imposing their will on top of you as though you have no say. That's basically what sort of not letting your power go is. Carly says most of those thousands of thoughts are repetitive. Exactly. And Mike says I know preparing Okay, so couple more. Noticing the exterior walls of your personality, your character, and your choices. That is another thing that you have access to when you get to those higher tiers. Of just seeing that actually you are putting, there are these unspoken and often unacknowledged parameters of your being that you are living within, that you've not really accounted for. And when you get to those higher tiers, you suddenly get a sense of, I am boundaryless, and the boundaries only exist and are only relevant on a particular tier of your consciousness. Once you get out of that, many things are possible. And that's why people like, I don't know, say Tony Robbins or Richard Branson or I'm only naming men, but I don't mean just men, like Ava DuVernay or Oprah or people like that. That's why they're able to do what they're able to do, because they're not confined to the boundaries of the personality or character, because they've seen beyond it and know that their reach capability is boundless. Pauline, all right? Couple more. Well, it's one more, and they're kind of linked together. It's more for Martha, but I don't think she's on this. Martha, are you here? Are you here? Anyways, the final one is just to get that nothing matters. It's quite nihilistic in a way if you want to hear it that way, but really nothing matters. And like what you think, what I think, none of it matters. There's an old saying, Carly, help me out with this. Oh, you're still here. Okay, cool, excellent. It's something about, tell your problems to the stars. Look up to the stars and tell your problems to the stars, and just see how indifferent they are to your woes. The universe doesn't give a shit, really. It does, but it doesn't. Not in the way that you need it to. Nothing matters. We're going to be gone soon. We're going to be gone so soon. But that doesn't matter. And some people take that as a, cool, okay, thanks, Carly. Some people take that as a, well, what's the point then? If nothing matters, then what is the point? Why am I here? And they spiral into this kind of, nihilistic kind of like, shit. But it doesn't matter that it doesn't matter. That is the key. Is it doesn't matter that it doesn't matter. So if you've got a choice of it not mattering or it not mattering, then nothing matters. And then in which case, you may as well live joyfully, because you've got a choice. Because if nothing matters, it doesn't matter. You can just live joyfully, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter either way. And that is the liberation of nothing mattering. And the part of you, or part of us, that wants to go, but, because sometimes when I'm thinking about something really awesome that's potentially going to happen or has happened, I'm just like, yeah. And then I go, oh, doesn't matter. And then I realize it doesn't matter. and that's a choice. That is literally your choice, to go, it doesn't matter, or it doesn't matter. You can live in joy with it, or you cannot. Doesn't matter. And there you go, Steve saying, create your best life. Okay, so let me just do your comments and then we'll wrap it up. Oh, I'm doing 15 minutes. I'm pleased with myself. Okay, the universe doesn't give a shit. Sorry, Martha, but yeah, it doesn't. Not in the way that we need it to. I don't mean that the universe doesn't care. There may be some universal, cosmic, conscious love on us, but not in a way that we mollycoddle. Oh, there, you'll get your house and your car that you want. Not that. Just an adoration for us being consciously here and wanting us, willing us to get to those levels so we can experience and go back to oneness and experience that joy. That's the love that the universe has for us. That's the shit that the universe gives for us, is that. Martha says, that makes me relax a bit, actually. Jolly good. Steve says, you should read Camus. Okay, he says exactly that. Well, I don't need to read it then. Create your best life. Cheeky Monkey's joined. Hello. I'm just going to shoot off, but thank you for joining. You can rewatch this on the old story catch up. And Mike says, going to live joyfully. Me and my chilly stinging eyes. I saw what you said about the contact lenses, but I wasn't going to read it out because it's like, okay. Jeannie says, given a choice, choose to be good, choose to be good, choose to be joyful, choose to be at one. And then being good is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And that's a nutty thought, but good is irrelevant when you're at those higher tiers, because you're already seeing the oneness in all of us, and therefore, like I said earlier, you wouldn't treat somebody badly because you know that that's what you're doing to yourself. What is it? Steve, help me out. What do Christians say? Like, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. So that's it. So this is the talk. This was the talk that could have happened last week, but it didn't. But everything happened as it was meant to. Maybe I did need that week to actually think about it and consider it, to be able to bring you, or bring to you, with you, what we created today. Carly says, makes me think of the story we were told at Concord. The man who went out to sea to commit suicide, and before he was about to kill himself, he realised he had nothing to lose and went back to land. A man who felt free. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we were able to live like that, my God, imagine the things that we would do. Imagine how free we would be in our lives. Steve says, Jesus said that. Fantastic. G Unique says, with our though we create the world. With our thoughts, we create the world. With our thoughts, I think you mean, yeah. Thoughts, yes, lovely. Kate, hello. I'm just literally about to sign off, but there's a chat about spirituality and that. Well done on that Paul Feig thing, by the way. He's loving your work. I thought that was awesome. Kate here directed my Sky short last September, I think it was. Anywho, all right, guys. Well, look, thank you as always for being here, for just your listening and just creating the space, really. And I genuinely mean that. I know I say it every week, but it's just not possible without you guys turning up and listening in a particular way. Like it's not an everyday conversation, and so it's not everyday listening that's required from your end. So I hope you get how important your contribution is, even if you don't, comment or whatever, that you're making a huge contribution by being part of it and allowing this to exist. Because that's one of my stands. My word is about helping creatives find their inspiration and be able to access some higher tier of thinking, so that they can trust in themselves and create what they want to create and put into the world. That's one of the things that I am realizing that is important to me. I'm trying to keep my word to that. I may not always succeed, but I want to try. And so that's what brings me back here every week is the commitment to intend. Because I do actually genuinely want to be here. I'm not going to try. I intend to be here. All right, guys. Well, look, have a wonderful week. Thank you, Steve. That's very kind of you to say. Have a brilliant week. I will see you. Listen, let me just make sure that my schedule works out, because I'm supposed to be traveling next week. So I want to make sure that I get to where I'm going well before we're due to speak. So just watch this space on Instagram for the announcement of that next week is definitely go ahead, and what time it will be. I think it's going to be about success. I really fancy that, but we'll see. I'll just see how the week pans out in terms of when I get my work schedule, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys, have a brilliant week, and I will see you on the other side. Bless you. Take care. Bye bye.